In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families, some who fear for their lives.
Well, Trump has responded. He took a while. His first response was didn't really say very much when he was asked by the media. And then he said the so-called bishop who spoke at the National Prayer Service on Tuesday morning was a radical left hardline Trump hater. She brought her church into the world of politics in a very ungracious way. She was nasty in tone and not compelling or smart. She failed to mention the large number of illegal migrants that came into our country and killed people. Many were deposited from jails and mental institutions. It's a giant crime wave that's taking part in the USA. Apart from her inappropriate statements, the service was a very boring and uninspiring one. She's not very good at her job. She and her church owe the public an apology.
In today's video, Piers Morgan absolutely goes off on Bishop Mariann Edgar Budde for her woke comments during the national prayer service. Instead of focusing on the event and minister the gospel, Bishop Budde took the opportunity to lecture Donald Trump and ask for mercy for illegal immigrants and trans people. You can clearly see Donald Trump and JD Vance were not having any of it, but let's dive in and see how Piers Morgan reacts to Bishop Budde's comments and what he has to say about this.
So I would say a fairly predictable response from President Trump, Riley. But I've got to say, I was pretty staggered that at such a moment when you got a new president, whoever it is, for the bishop to suddenly launch into what was very clearly a pretty partisan political speech, which bore very little relation to the fact that all Trump had said was there are two genders, male and female. That's it. That doesn't seem to me to be leading directly to young kids all over America fearing for their lives, unless I missed something.
No. And before I even answer that, Trump put out that tweet at about midnight. So the 12 a.m. mean tweets are back in full effect. I know. Yeah, when I first saw this video, I saw it in the same format that you just showed. It looked like a stitch almost, like one side and one side. And I thought it was a skit until I realized, of course, that it wasn't. As you mentioned, Trump's EO that he signed, which I would imagine as this is why this bishop went into this parade in the way that she did, it merely just defined male and female and indicated those are the only two sexes that exist. I would love to ask this bishop, okay, if there are more, then what are they? I know you've had Harry Sisson on this show. I love that clip of you, Piers, asking him, what are the, you say there are more than two genders. Right. What are the other genders? And of course, there's never an answer. So it's wild to me that we live in this time where we have to applaud such decisive and executive action. Truthfully, I don't want to, because it's like we're applauding someone for saying that the sky is blue. But nonetheless, that is the point of decay that we have reached as a society. So it's a big victory, and it's certainly worth celebrating. And I think this female bishop is just your classic progressive pastor, quick to speak of God's grace, but hesitant to condemn sin. And so preaching half of the truth isn't preaching the gospel at all.
Yeah, I mean, Dave Smith, I just found it extraordinary that she went to kind of DEFCON 3. There are children all over America fearing for their lives simply because Donald Trump said there's male and female out there. That's it. That's how we're now going to deal with this issue. That's how people are going to be referred to. How does that lead? Where's the correlation to a load of American kids terrified for their lives?
Piers Morgan is absolutely right. Bishop Budde used the prayer service to push her agenda instead of proclaiming the gospel. All Donald Trump said was that there are two genders and his plan to deport illegal immigrants, which are logical points. The US has over 11 million illegal immigrants, costing $150 billion a year. Schools are overcrowded, hospitals are burdened, and wages are suppressed. It's not about lacking compassion, it's about fairness and responsible management. Bishop Budde turned this into a political sermon and completely missed the bigger picture.
Well, I mean, look, and I just think this represents so much of what we've had to deal with insane wokeism over the last decade at least, and what has just been rejected by the American people. And you nailed it, Piers, right? It's that this is clearly a political speech. This is how the woke do it, right? It's clearly a political speech, but you present it as if you're transcending above politics, and it's just about morality, but obviously it's not. And look, the two major political issues that she was hitting on, number one, I mean, I completely agree with Riley on this. And if humanity survives for another 50 years, when historians write books about this time period, it will just be about the mass psychosis and how madness just swept, culture. And the stuff is just it's so ridiculous. And again, like the example of you asking that kid how many genders there are. Nobody can answer the most simple questions when it comes to the trans thing. Like the most basic one of why can't I identify as a horse?
Yeah.
If objective biology doesn't exist anymore.
No, I've actually been on this. I identified on International Women's Day.
You can.
Several years ago, I identified
as
a...
Dave.
Well,
I
can go better. I can go better. I identified as a...
Can I also... okay.
Well, Dave, the point I was going to make was on International Women's Day a couple of years ago, I identified on the show as a black lesbian because, frankly, if self-identity is limitless, why can't I?
Exactly, Piers. And let me just, by the way, to your point of your response of I can identify as a horse. Yes, okay, I can. And the correct reaction to that should be for everyone else to you're an insane person.
But you're not a horse.
And you're also a person, a human being, not a horse.
Just for the record,
but anyway, and then with the whole this whole weaponized empathy about immigration. I mean, look, Piers, I'm sure you've seen some of the most recent polls. Americans agree by super majorities that they reject the de facto open borders of the Biden administration. And so to make this political speech while the guy, which is against the politics of the guy who just got elected, and also against what has been wokeism and open borders have been rejected by super majorities of the American people. And so to make this speech in this moment was just totally inappropriate and just, I don't know, there's something about it that I find disgusting. This thing where you just hide behind there are people who are afraid and the trans kids are afraid. Yeah, you know what? There are other people who are afraid that these progressive maniacs are going to propagandize their children more with this gender nonsense. And I'm a little bit more concerned for those people. So we had an election. We've had national debates about this. That stuff has been rejected again by super majorities of the American people.
Let me pause the video for a second. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. Now, I've got to say I completely agree with Dave on this one. Teachers in the US pushing radical ideologies in the classroom is way more concerning than Donald Trump saying there are two genders, which is just simple biology. I found this very interesting survey showing that over 35% of parents think schools have gotten more political in the last 2 years. Meanwhile, US students rank only 36th in math out of 79 countries. Seriously, what are we focusing on? Pushing political agendas to children instead of actually improving education? It just doesn't make any sense.
Ali, what are your thoughts on this? I really did think it was hit completely the wrong mark. She may feel all these things, but to just start, it seemed to me the biggest problem the Democrats had in the last 4 years, culminating in the terrible beating they got in the election, was that they kept scolding the American people. Constant scolding, culminating in Barack Obama scolding other black Americans. If you don't vote for Kamala because she's black, effectively, then you're betraying black people. It's this constant, self-righteous, high moral scolding. And they took a terrible drubbing in the election. Trump's back with a bang. And rather than be clever and move on and evolve as a party and work out how to find the next Bill Clinton or someone like it who can actually take this head on and be a proper opponent, it seemed to me they've learned nothing. You say you're a Democrat now. Did you enjoy what that bishop was saying? Or did you not think like I did? Wow, have you not got the memo that people are fed up with this stuff?
Okay, let me start off by saying the slippery slope argument is not a real argument of, people are going to start identifying as horses. That's
is reminiscent of the gay marriage
era. That is what you said. The gay marriage era where people said that people were going to start marrying their pets. It's ridiculous.
It's a logical. Listen, it's not, again, just to not strawman me. I'm making a logical analogy. I'm not equating the two things. And I'm not saying that transgenderism will lead to people identifying as a horse. The point is to attack the logic. What's wrong with me saying I'm a horse? You now have to respect my identity as a horse. What's wrong with it is that objective reality exists.
Not a horse. Yeah,
exactly.
The point is, the point is, Ali, limitless self-identity means that anyone, anywhere can identify as whatever they like. And the reason it matters is that this goes right to the heart of the trans debate, say, in women's sport. I want trans people to have the same rights to equality and fairness as everybody else on this panel, including me, right? What I don't want is women's rights being trashed in the process. And when you allow people who were born biological male with all the advantage in terms of power and strength and speed and so on, when you allow them to simply put their hand up and say, I'm now a woman and I want to compete against women in women's sport, and then they start performing immeasurably better comparative to how they were performing against other biological men, then you realize the problem. And this is why the Democrats, one of the reasons they lost. That last ad that Trump did, Kamala's for they, them, Donald Trump's for you. One of the most effective ads in modern times. There's a reason. Because most people actually went, yeah, he's got a point. We're fed up with this crap. So did you, honestly, Ali, when you heard that, Bishop, did you think, great, really needed to be said? Or did you slightly wince and went, we haven't got the right memo here?
No, I really respected what she said, actually, and I think she has a lot more guts than a lot of politicians do. Not many people get to sit and talk to the vice president, the president, and their families face to face like that. And so she could have easily just, put her head down and complied. And I think they needed to hear what she said, whether they wanted to or not. They clearly didn't. But I truly believe it was important for them to hear that. And it shows just how truly cruel, callous, and anti-Christian that these people actually are. And another point is that trans people have existed since the beginning of time. They will exist. They'll always exist. The Republican Party's current position is that there are only two genders and trans people don't exist, or it's made up. And that's just not true. There are a lot of transgender kids that genuinely are scared. If you haven't met one, just say that. But I have met one, I've met many, and I have transgender friends, and they are scared because there's a target on their back by this incoming administration. And I understand the Republican Party's concern about men and women's sports. That makes it sound very scary and perhaps dangerous, but I think there is a common sense solution to having inclusivity and not isolating transgender kids from their friends or sports that they want to play in high school that aren't even at the competitive level, because we simply think that they just don't belong. And there is a common sense solution. Why can't they just
compete against their biological sex like everybody else has to? I mean, let me bring in Clay Travis quickly on this, because it's a big issue, this. I just felt like, wow, here we got Miss Bishop, just didn't get the stop scolding everyone memo and just sounded ridiculous.
When it comes to trans people in women's sports, it's not about politics. It's about fairness. Science shows biological differences matter. Even after hormone therapy, it's said that trans women retain a 9 to 10% performance advantage. For example, Leah Thomas went from ranking 462nd in men's swimming to literally dominating women's events. It's just totally unfair. And as for Bishop Budde, she can have her opinions on LGBTQ or immigration, but a national prayer service isn't the place to push political views. It's meant to unify and not divide the country, and turning it into a political platform was just straight up inappropriate. Anyways, if you've enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. I'd love to hear your thoughts too in the comments.